Welcome to Beyond the Things Written. And for this episode, I'll keep it brief, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why we decided not to focus on beliefs on this channel. And one of the reasons, or there's a variety of reasons, but it got me thinking. I was listening to Six Screens, shout out, and I was hearing Barbara Anderson talk about how she didn't appreciate talking about her beliefs at this time. And I thought, even though it wasn't the reason why we chose that, I agreed with her on this principle because our focus here is to really help people out of the authoritarian, totalitarian, dogmatic, legalistic system that often is the focus of their beliefs. These systems is the problem to such a degree that people don't even know who they are as persons. They're so devoid of personality, they haven't had a chance to even begun to know what they believe. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe as an individual. They believe as a unit. And as a unit, the average Jehovah's Witness never came up with their faith, never studied it. They studied what someone else told them is the truth. And then based on the authority they have accept that belief, such as blood transfusions, such as shunning. No one ever, not that I know of, ever looked at the Bible and came with those policies. That the Jerusalem Council was talking about blood transfusions. Who gets to tell you that it's blood transfusions is included when it was clearly a dietary law at the time? There was no blood transfusions then. So who says that it has to include, blood transfusions 2,000 years later? Well, if you accept authority of the governing body, then you'll come to the conclusion that whatever they tell you is from God. And therefore, we shouldn't take a blood transfusion. Most persons, if they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses that accepted the governing body as their authority, would not come to that conclusion. In fact, we know they don't because we can look at those that are non-Jehovah's Witnesses, and I don't know of any that ever come to the same conclusion. There might be some, but certainly the majority of persons, when they look at that, not that majority means that it's right or it's wrong. It's the simple fact is that Jehovah's Witnesses don't make the decision for themselves. So what we want to focus on this channel, again, beliefs are important. But the fact is those systems that are telling them that these beliefs are what to believe in is the real issue and problem we're focusing on. So when we come out of the Jehovah's Witness world, we often have a flurry of questions. I remember 20 years or so when I first questioned Raymond Franz, and I just started out a bunch of things. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And he came back to me. Of course, I wasn't the first person to do this to him. And he responded with some very wise words. He spoke about dogmatism. And it's one of those elements we always talk about, those totalitarian dogmatic systems. And dogmatism is the insistence of one point over another, especially when it's without merit. There's ambiguity. There's lack of information to make a solid decision on one, like the blood transfusion policy, for instance. And so in those instances, there's no need to be dogmatic on things. So that was kind of the first lesson I didn't really learn it at the time, but learning is a process. You know something in your mind, but when you experience it, it's when you truly are learning it. It's like a gradual evolution of learning where you say, oh yeah, now I really understand what so-and-so is meaning. Like when Jesus said, let him have ears, listen. You're really getting it. And sometimes it's the journey to the answer, the character it builds, the incessant need to find out, the ability to go one way, then the next, then up, then down, and to be on this journey of discovery, to be on this journey of character building, to be on this journey of wonderment, to be on this journey of honesty and being honest with yourself, and on and on. It is my last 20 years. The journey has taught me more of an answer than the answers I've had. And I have some wonderful, wonderful realizations and eureka moments, and we're going to share them all. And a lot of it is a step-by-step process. So that's why we want to focus on who we are as people, who we are as character, our motivations of why we're doing things. This is why we talk about often morality. One of the dangers is to view Jehovah's Witnesses or any religious group as moral. Jesus was right when he said, if your righteousness does not exceed the Pharisees, meaning religious people, that's what he meant, you're not going to get into the kingdom of God. Right? What did he mean? The first will be last, last first. Right? These are the things that have to do with morality. Following man-made sets of rules does not make you moral. It makes you practical. It makes you practical. Yeah, I better do these things or I'm going to get zapped. That's not what the Christian teaching of Jesus is. And that's certainly not my experience. And it was a mistake I made. I thought Jehovah's Witnesses were moral people, and I was moral. And so there will be a lot of videos we're talking. I want to touch briefly on that today. And that's one of the reasons why. If you looked at my journey at the beginning, you know how many conspiracy theories I got through to come here? I've been through a lot. And so I'm not here to condemn people's beliefs. I respect them on a level, just as I would hope someone in my position looking at someone in starting their journey as I started my journey 20 years ago. We're here to be empathetic. We're here to share. We're here different ideas, the non-dogmatic approach, the character, the motivation of who we are really as people, as the primary focus of what we should be doing with our lives. The form of worship that God requires is to take out to those in misfortune, right? The orphan and widows. Then talk about beliefs, then talk about the Trinity, then talk about hellfire, but how we treated other people. That was the worship that God requires, to keep one spot from the world. So there are a variety of reasons, as we try to touch on here, as to why we don't focus on beliefs. But of course, they're important. And they're, again, because of the ambiguity often, we have to approach it in a non-dogmatic way. We don't want to repeat the errors that we made. Once a 2/3 majority governing body says it, then it's truth. And then once they change their mind to sometimes a different thing, then it's the truth. That's not how morality works, and that's not how truth works. So that is part of the reason why we are focusing on the system, the totalitarian, authoritarian, dogmatic, legalistic system, and showing folks where the authority lies in Jehovah's Witness teaching. It is in the authority they say have been appointed in the last days in 1919, that started in 1914, that Jesus invisibly returned, looked at all religions and picked Jehovah's Witnesses' leadership. That is the number one reason, the number one focus that we are trying to share with the Jehovah's Witnesses and even ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, is really what the problem lies at. It's the system of control, the system of really idolatry that Jehovah's Witnesses have instituted. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, do not be afraid of them or what they say. Time is on our side. Keep well, and we hope to see you next time on Beyond the Things Written.